Welcome back. Starting January 1st, strip clubs in Illinois will pay a new state tax. The money generated will be used to help fund rape crisis centers around the state. These centers in Illinois are struggling due to late payments by the state. Here with more on the issue, Lieutenant Governor Sheila Simon and State Senator Toi Hutchinson from Olympia Fields. Thank you, ladies, both so much for being here this morning.
Thanks for having us.
Senator, let's start with you. You kind of were the force behind this legislation. Talk about why there was a need for this, you think.
Well, we had centers across the state that were really struggling to continue to provide services to people really who had experienced a pretty serious trauma. And we knew that if we could find a stable revenue source, then we might be able to help a lot of women across the state make sure that they had the services they need when they experience something like this across the state. So that was really the impetus behind it, and it was directly after the state of Texas had passed a very similar provision.
Okay, so how does it work? Does the patron pays extra then, and then the club then pays it into the state coffers?
Well, it's set up to the clubs can choose, actually. I mean, they can choose to count how many people come in and pay, you know, a per person surcharge, or they can kind of look at how much their sales tax are and, you know, check a box and pay a certain amount and go to state then. That was after a lot of months of negotiation and a lot of conversations with owners of businesses around the state that had very strong feelings about how we would get this done. So,
has there been any projection of how much revenue this will raise?
I think at the high end, I think it was nearly $2 million.
Okay.
That would then go to all the sexual assault centers across the state.
And we see, you know, obviously with the cigarette tax, you know, charging more for cigarettes in an effort to not only increase funding for health and preventative programs, but you also are looking to deter that kind of behavior. Would this be a deterrent then from visiting these kinds of establishments, do you think?
I think not, and we actually looked closely at Texas's law to make sure that we weren't doing anything that would interfere with protected constitutional rights of free speech.
Okay.
So the intention was really to associate a business that profits in an area where we know there are some increases in sexual assaults, where these clubs they're located and serving alcohol. We see an increased rate of sexual assault. So we're putting a little bit of the problem together with the solution, and I think that works for everyone.
And obviously this lack of funding is a statewide issue. We see it a lot here in our region too. You being from Carterville obviously know this. Talk about the importance of funding places like, I'm assuming maybe the Women's Center in Carterville would benefit.
The Women's Center in Carterville will benefit, and they have been active in helping us pass the bill. Places like the Women's Center and their sexual assault program have seen their funding drop by about 30% over the last 4 or more years. It means that they're having to do things like have a waiting list for counseling. So if someone finally works up the nerve and says, I've been a victim of sexual assault and I need help, the last thing we want to say is, great, we're glad you called. Can you call back in a month when we have counseling time available? Right. So we want to make sure that those people are ready to respond at hospitals, to respond at police departments whenever a sexual assault occurs.